Very good afternoon. We are on unit number 3 of the subject business research methods. In the last few lectures, we have talked about processing of data. Now, today we are going to speak about the further processes. Once your data is ready, processed, you have a graphical representation ready. Now, the researcher has to analyze the data. What do you mean by analyzing the data? Analyzing the data means breaking the complex topics into smaller parts so that you can make some sense out of it. In research, analysis refers to the method of organizing data in such a way that the hypothesis can be tested. You remember earlier when we discussed all the steps, we had begun our research with some hypothesis. So after the data is collected, processed and analyzed, we need to put that hypothesis to test. So analysis of data helps us in putting our hypothesis to test. Data analysis is of 4 types: descriptive, inferential, correlation and causal. From the name itself you will understand the meaning. Descriptive analysis is the data analysis where detailed descriptions are given. Inferential analysis is where you come to some conclusion or some inferences from the sample and you generalize it for the population. Correlation analysis is where you try to establish a relationship between two different variables. For example, you may have positive correlation where when you are plotting the points of the two variables, you will establish a positive relation between the two. So that is called as positive correlation. If you find a trend which is downward, it is negative correlation, and if you find there is no trend at all, it is no correlation. The fourth type of analysis is causal analysis. Here you try to answer the question why, the reasons, cause, effect of the variables on each other. Causal analysis can be circular or systemic. What is circular analysis? Circular analysis is where the cause acts as in circles. For example, births will lead to population increase. Increase in birth will lead to population increase, which will lead to more births and so on. So this is a cycle which is being created. So it is called as circular cause. Any other will be called as systemic cause. Once the data is processed, you need to interpret the data. What do you mean by interpretation? It means try to make some sense or find out some trends or develop some meaning from the data which you have analyzed. In order to have a good interpretation of data, it has to be simple, continuous, complete, balanced, flexible, selective, must be accepted by all. You should make use of the best in the resources in the best way. There should be unity of action and effective control. Why is data interpretation important? Why are you doing research? You are doing research to find solution to the problem. You have collected so much of data, you are going to process it, analyze it so that you arrive at certain decision. So data interpretation helps you to take informed decisions. It helps you to anticipate needs with the trend identification. It helps in cost efficiency and clear foresight. Your vision for the organization can be met through this data interpretation. We have already seen in the earlier slides the essentials of processing data and the importance of processing data. Data processing is very significant process because without proper data processing, it is not possible to code it, edit it, and to feed the data in your software. And when the data is ready after processing, the data becomes very compact. Now we come to a very technical part of unit number 3, that is multivariate analysis. When you are doing research on only one variable, it is called as univariate analysis. When you are studying two variables, it is called as bivariate analysis. For example, if I am just studying the about online lectures, so that will become univariate analysis. If I study the impact of online lectures on the health of students, I am studying two variables, so that is called as bivariate analysis. But if I am studying the impact of several different factors on the health of students, that would be lack of exercise, food, online lectures, social media viewing. So this becomes multivariate analysis. Multivariate analysis is of four types: multiple discriminate analysis, multiple regression analysis, multivariate analysis of variance, or it is called as multi-ANOVA or MANOVA, and the fourth is canonical analysis. Multiple discriminant analysis is used when there are two or more groups. This kind of analysis is a statistical technique. It is used to classify observation into non-overlapping groups. For example, a doctor may want to perform research on two groups of patients, one who are at a high risk of stroke and two who are at a low risk of stroke. So he will classify the patients into two categories based on their personal attribute and make use of multiple discriminate analysis. The second type is multiple regression analysis. This is also a statistical technique which is used for predicting something which is unknown from some known values. So you have some known values and you are using it to estimate or to predict the unknown value. For example, you want to find out the yield of rice per acre, which is an uncertain or unknown value. You don't know how much of yield is going to, how much of rice is going to grow in that soil. So you will have to analyze the quality of seed, fertility of soil, quality of fertilizer, rainfall, etc. So for this you will have to do regression analysis. The third is multivariate analysis of variance. The short form of analysis of variance is ANOVA. AN from analysis, O from of, and VA from variance. So it is called as ANOVA. And when you are using it for multiple variates, it is called as multivariate analysis or MANOVA. Okay, so ANOVA again is a collection of statistical models, which is a very complicated way in which you are going to analyze the differences among means in a sample. Means means the average in a sample. Let's try to understand this ANOVA a little bit. ANOVA is a very useful technique. It is used in lots of researches in economics, biology, education, psychology, sociology, business, and in several researches in different disciplines. This is a technique which is used when there are multiple samples. What do you mean by multiple samples? You have a very huge population consisting of different category of people. So you will have to draw samples from each of these category of people. So you may have multiple samples. So through ANOVA, what do? You examine the significance of difference among more than two sample means, that is the average, at the same time. This technique can be used to draw conclusions about whether the sample have been drawn from population have the same average or same mean or not. Now this ANOVA can be of two types, one-way ANOVA and two-way ANOVA. Now when ANOVA is used to compare two or more group means on a continuous dependent variable, it is called as one-way ANOVA. T-test is a special case, or it is an example of one-way ANOVA. Now, example of one-way ANOVA is a manufacturing company wants to compare the productivity of 3 or more employees based on working hours. Okay, so you have one variable and you want to compare the productivity of 3 people or more people based on that one variable. So that is one-way ANOVA. Another example of one-way ANOVA is here. You have a research where you are trying to find out the effect of 5 different types of exercises on weight loss. Okay, so you will have say 20 samples, and each sample you will assign an exercise. Now you will divide the samples into maybe 4 groups because 5 different exercises are there, and each of them will be assigned different exercises. So this is called as one-way ANOVA. You have one independent variable with more than 2 conditions. Now in this same research, if you are also adding diet, you want to find out the effect of exercise as well as diet control on weight loss. So now in this experiment, what do? You have hired say 40 men, and each of them you are giving an exercise, but half of the men, that is 20 men, will follow a calorie control diet, whereas the other half will not. So you have two different categories. So that is why it is called as two-way ANOVA. So the more independent variables, the more the types of ANOVAs you can have. That is three-way ANOVA, four-way ANOVA, and so on. Now we come to the last topic of our unit number 3, and that is testing of hypothesis. You might remember the various steps in the research process, where we had in step number 5 designing a hypothesis or making a hypothesis. So what is hypothesis? It is an assumption which you make before your research begins, right? So in this assumption, the researcher is just assuming based on his thinking, reading, that this might have happened. But this hypothesis needs to be accepted or rejected. That it means it needs to be confirmed. So that is done in testing of hypothesis. So hypothesis testing refers to the means used to determine if the hypothesis stated earlier, that is in step number 5, is supported by evidence or not. For example, I might assume before my research that online lectures are very popular in my students. So that is my assumption. But only after I do proper research will I be able to prove this assumption of mine. So that is called as testing of hypothesis. Now here is a very nice example which will help you to understand this hypothesis testing. Now you have a case where traumatic brain injury that you have when your brain becomes injured, maybe due to accident or due to some other reason. What happens is millions of neurons means the brain cells, they become hyperactive and they are damaged. These neurons are damaged. So there is a drug company which has invented a medicine which will help to suppress this damage. Okay, so now the question is, will this drug work as an effective treatment for traumatic brain injury? Okay, so research hypothesis is that the drug, that is drug means the medicine, reduces the damage and the patient will have a better recovery. That means the drug is effective. So the researcher is assuming that the drug is effective. But in hypothesis making, you usually make a hypothesis or you create or develop a hypothesis which is just the opposite of what you believe. That is called as null hypothesis. So in this example, the null hypothesis will be the drug is not effective, and the alternate hypothesis will be the drug is effective. So always the hypothesis is made in a pair. So you have a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis. Usually null hypothesis is the negation of what you believe in. For example, over here we believe that the drug is effective. So we will say null hypothesis is the drug is not effective, and the alternate hypothesis is the drug is effective. So through your data analysis and interpretation, you will have to accept or reject this null hypothesis. Okay, I hope I am clear. One more example. Before I go to the example, this is the symbol which is used for your hypothesis. One second, I'll just minimize this. When you are representing null hypothesis, it is denoted as H0. In statistics, it is denoted as H0, and alternative hypothesis is denoted as H1 or HA. So null hypothesis is H0, alternative hypothesis is H1 or HA. Now let us see one more example which will make this very, very clear to you. This is an experiment or research on effect of a biofertilizer on plant growth. So researcher believes that the biofertilizer increases plant growth. So what the researcher will do? Null hypothesis he will use as application of biofertilizer does not increase plant growth. Mark this word, does not. Negation of what he or she believes in. Okay, so that is in the null hypothesis. And in the alternative hypothesis, it will be what he or she believes, that application of biofertilizer will increase the plant growth. Now, what are the steps in hypothesis testing? Hypothesis testing is the 11th step, the second last step. You are coming to the end of your research process. So first you will have to formulate a hypothesis, like I gave you so many examples just now about null and alternative hypothesis. Then you will have to develop a suitable level of significance. Now this suitable level of significance will depend on the researcher. He or she will have to decide whether it is 1% or 5%. What does this mean? It indicates the level of confidence in the decision. That means if it is 1%, it means that the chances of acceptance or rejection are 1 out of 100. If it is 5%, it means chances of acceptance and rejection are 5 out of 100. So 1% significance level indicates greater level of confidence in the decision. The third step is to select the test criteria. That means which test should you use. There are two tests. One is called as the t-test and the second is called as the z-test. Now when should you use t-test and when should you use z-test? If your sample size is large, that means if it is more than 30, then you have to use z-test. And if it is less than 30, you have to use t-test. So for small samples, t-test. For large samples, z-test. Once your level of significance is decided, your test is decided, now you start calculating your results, keeping in mind the standard errors. Once the result is calculated, you decide whether to accept the null hypothesis or reject the null hypothesis. If the null hypothesis is rejected, that means you are accepting your alternate hypothesis. A little more about Z and T test. As I said earlier, both of them are statistical tests. Both of them are used for hypothesis testing. But Z test is used when sample size is more than 30 and T test is used when sample size is less than 30. With this slide, we have completed unit number 3.